Regular City Council meeting for May 17, 2023. To order.
Offline.
Call this meeting to order. It is 6:10 p.m. Madam Clerk, roll call.
Mayor Ronnie Felder.
Here.
Chairperson Douglas Lawson.
Here.
Chair Pro Tem Shirley Lanier. Here. Councilperson Trodrick McCoy.
Here.
Councilperson Kashamba Miller Anderson.
Present.
Councilperson Julia Botel.
Here.
City Manager Jonathan Evans.
Present.
Tawana Smith, Interim City Clerk, is present. Ms. Keandra Davis, Assistant City Attorney.
Here.
And we have Mr. Raymond Galloway of John F. Kennedy Middle School, who will be doing the pledge for us tonight.
Thank you, Madam Clerk.
Yes.
Before we have Mr. Galloway come up, I'd like to take a moment of silence for our city attorney, Attorney Dawn Wynn, and the Rouse family for the tragic loss of their beloved son, Richard Rouse Jr. Thank you for sharing such a wonderful, kind, sweet child. So please, if we can have a moment of silence first. Thank you. And now we'll have the Pledge of Allegiance. If we can have everyone please stand. We are going to have tonight Mr. Ramon Galloway, Jr., 13 years of age, 7th grade International Baccalaureate student from John F. Kennedy Middle School. He's the great son of Sheriff Deputy Brittany Walker and a professional overseas basketball player, Ramon Galloway. This young man is also the grandson of the greats, Ms. Gwen Oakes, who's an outstanding employee with this city, and he continues to grow here in the city and accomplish his goals. Ramon currently has a 3.73 GPA. Thank you for being with us, Ramon.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Evans, Board, do we have any additions, deletions, or substitution?
Yes, Mr. Chair, I'll ask that the city clerk read those items into the record.
Mr. Chair, we're going to be deleting item 3A, A as in apple, item 6C, C as in Charlie, items 11B, B as in boy, 11C as in Charlie, 11D as in David, 11E as in egg, and 11F as in Frank.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Mr. Evans, any additional deletions?
No, Mr. Chair.
Board? Any disclosures from the board? Can I have a motion to adopt agenda?
To adopt the agenda.
Second.
Thank you, Madam Clerk.
Councilperson Julia Botel,
Yes.
Councilperson Kashamba Miller Anderson,
Yes.
Councilperson Trodrick McCoy,
Yes.
Chair Pro Tem Shirley Lanier,
Yes.
Chairperson Douglas Lawson.
Yes.
That vote passes, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. All matters listed under this item are considered to be routine in action and will be taken with one motion. There's no separate discussion of these items unless a councilperson so requests, in which the event the item will be removed from the general order of business and considered in its normal sequence on this agenda. We are going to be focused and talking about our consent agenda. Does anyone want to pull an item from the agenda? Any public comments, Madam Clerk?
No, we don't have any public comment cards on consent agenda.
Thank you, Madam Clerk.
Motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Motion's been made, properly second. Madam Clerk?
Councilperson Julia Botel,
Yes.
Councilperson Kashamba Miller Anderson,
Yes.
Councilperson Trodrick McCoy,
Yes.
Chair Pro Tem Shirley Lanier,
Yes.
Chairperson Douglas Lawson.
Yes.
That vote passes, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. We're going to go into awards and presentations. 6A, discussion regarding respective property lines bordering Lake Worth Lagoon.
Mr. Chair, this item is placed on by the City Attorney's Office, and I believe the young man that's making the presentation will be coming up.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman and members of the council. My name is Andrew Bauman from the law firm of Lewis, Longman and Walker, and we have the pleasure of serving as special counsel on selected matters for the city. I was asked to come here today to provide some information and ask questions or to answer questions regarding issues over potential property boundaries on Singer Island as a result of survey work that was done in connection with a lawsuit that we've been handling on behalf of the city involving the submerged land in Lake Worth west of A1A. So the question that arose was, as you all know, the city had been sued by Mr. Fane Lozman over whether or not the city's regulations had amounted to a taking of his property under the United States Constitution. In defending that lawsuit, the city both has to defend the lawsuit, obviously, on the grounds of the city hasn't taken the property, but the city also has to defend the lawsuit on the grounds of if we were forced to go to trial and determine the value of the property in front of a jury, what would that look like? As a result of that, the city had to figure out the value of that piece of property. The issue that arose is that properties like that are valued based on a price per square foot, essentially. What occurred was the property itself, the boundaries of it and the size of it, somewhat, came into question, if you will. We attempted to have a survey performed, and the surveyor immediately ran into an issue that, upon research in the case, we discovered is not a new issue on Singer Island. And that is that there was a deed executed by the state of Florida back in 1924, conveying about 300 acres of land, essentially west of the right-of-way of State Road A1A, north of Pine Point Road, to give you guys a frame of reference in modern day. And what occurred was that the actual deed conveying this land, of which Mr. Lozman in that lawsuit owns a slice of it, if you will, that goes out into the lake, that deed had a legal description of what the state was conveying in this trustee's deed. And that legal description described the land in meets and bounds legal description, which I'm sure you've all seen at some point or another, where they talk about going, X number of feet to the west and then, X number of feet to the north, and they walk you around the edge of the parcel. The particular legal description in this 1924 deed uses what's called a point of beginning, which you have in every survey. This is where you start. And the point of beginning here was the southwest corner of section 22. That's located essentially just north of where Pine Point Road meets State Road A1A. However, the deed did not just describe start at this section corner. It said started in this section corner as established by the surveyor William Reyes in his 1859 survey for the federal government. This was important because the state of Florida had received some of this land from the federal government, and they thought it important to convey it the same way they received it. However, subsequently, landowners discovered that Section 22 is what we call a fractional section. It's not a square, and that's because Singer Island's not a square. So parts of Section 22 would go out in the ocean or out in the Lake Worth Lagoon. So what we do in a fractional section is you have that part of the square, and then it's bounded by the shorelines on either side. The fractional section corner was located on the shoreline as Mr. Reyes surveyed it in 1858. Apparently, come the 1920s, the shoreline has obviously changed, as shorelines do. And the corner was apparently either in the water or just offshore or something like that. So a survey had been done by the folks that were buying the property, Lake Worth Realty, and they had located a section corner, but they'd done it in a different way than the surveyor, the original United States surveyor, had done it in 1859. And the result is a section corner that is not in the same place as the one originally created by the United States government. The section corner is approximately the section corner that has been used by landowners is approximately 60 some odd feet south and about 70 some odd feet west of the actual section corner that Mr. Reyes established. So that means that if you were to draw out this trustee's deed, as we were required to do in the lawsuit, and if you were then to figure out where Mr. Lozman's lot was within that larger tract of land, you're left with, wait a second, if I do this under the legal description of the deed for the title to this property, I wind up with a piece of property that's in a slightly different location. The result of that was that the property, under the testimony of the surveyor and his survey, that the property in question was actually smaller, meaning that if we had to go to trial and determine a verdict, you'd be paying less because you're paying by the square foot. I mean, it was like two acres smaller. It was significant. That issue was not ultimately resolved by the court in its judgment, which is on appeal by Mr. Lozman. But questions were raised and statements were made, I guess, in a public forum about how the establishment of this section corner in a different location than one that had been used by past property owners on Singer Island was going to somehow create a firestorm of problems with people's titles to their properties. Their lots aren't in the right place, and things like that. So the long and the short of it is that it will not. And the reason is as follows. When the property was sold to Lake Worth Realty Company in 1924, the state of Florida actually had extensive correspondence with Lake Worth Realty in 1924. I have these old yellow letters from the chief drainage engineer for the state of Florida in 1924. And they note that the description to Lake Worth Realty of this 300 acres was drawn up so because the trustees, the state of Florida, was only going to convey the land in the way they received it. However, the chief drainage engineer warned the Lake Worth Realty Company that they had forwarded a map, and they said the location of this section corner is by a different method from that used in the original location of this corner.
Excuse me, Attorney Bowman, I apologize for interrupting, but if you could get to the intent.
Okay.
If we could just be clear with what is the
Sure.
purpose of this.
The result here is that the landowner that bought the land from the governor and cabinet, the state of Florida, he owned the upland, the part of Singer Island that bordered that as well. the other landowner that owned to the south of this section corner, this section line, the two of them entered into a boundary agreement in 1924. And that boundary agreement basically says that the two of them will are agreeing upon a boundary of their two properties based upon the location of a section corner and a location that they're agreeing to. These landowners then subdivided up Singer Island, subject to this boundary agreement. You know, areas were platted and those plats were recorded, and it all is premised upon that boundary agreement. So that does not affect this piece of property because this piece of property is not part of the upland. This piece of property is out in the middle of Lake Worth. And the issue here was that by using the wrong section corner, they were pushing the deeded area out into Lake Worth. In other words, they were including submerged land in Lake Worth further out that is still owned by the state. And the state was not a party to this boundary agreement. So this change in the legal description really only affects the folks with these properties that are these underwater properties north of Pine Point Road at this point. The remainder of the properties on Lake Worth were developed pursuant to boundary agreements. Areas were filled prior to 1954, I believe. And as a result of those actions, they've essentially solidified what their ownership is. You can't take something from this individual lawsuit and
Turn it around.
spread it across the entirety of Singer Island.
Understood.
So apparently the city was receiving a number of communications and concerns from citizens who had heard or read something on, I don't know, Twitter or Facebook or whatever.
Well, again, apologize, Attorney Bowman, but
Yeah.
board, we've allocated 5 minutes for this item.
Okay.
So I did want to kind of get
Oh,
wrapping
no,
it
no,
up.
I didn't know what you guys
And I
had
want to give the
allocated.
board members an opportunity to ask any questions that
Absolutely.
they may have so that we can kind of stay within the agenda. So colleagues, anyone want to ask?
Mr. Chair, yes, thank you.
Councilwoman Botel, please.
This item is of critical importance to people who live on Singer Island. So if, with your indulgence, I'd like to give it as much time as it requires. It's really one of the most important things that's come before us of late for people who live in that area. So just to be clear, those people who are claiming that boundary lines will be affected by this decision have no basis. There's no basis.
Not upland boundary lines, no.
Okay, so people don't have to worry, and the street of Bimini was mentioned on numerous occasions. The people who live on Bimini don't have to worry that their houses are going to be shifted around, okay?
No, you're not going to see people's lots, especially those in platted subdivisions and in the development orders for the condominiums that are all west of A1A, for example. No, they're not. They are not affected by this because there is a boundary there are actually two boundary agreements that are in place that were put in place in 1924 when this was raw land, and the people, you know, north of essentially Pine Point Road, they agreed with the people that owned everything south of Pine Point Road. This is where our boundary is going to be, and then they proceeded to carve their respective lands up.
Okay.
So everything is subject to that recorded boundary agreement. The land offshore is different because the state of Florida was not a party to that boundary agreement. So what we're really talking about is the western boundary of that deed and of those respective parcels. They can't go out further than what the state of Florida gave them. And the state of Florida's deed specifically referenced this specific survey as here is where you will measure this land from.
Now, if I may follow up, people
Go
who
ahead.
have owners of submerged property, other owners of submerged property, there's at least one condominium that owns submerged property. I think you and I may have.
They might be affected by
Yeah.
this in terms of the submerged property.
Yeah.
Maybe doesn't go out about 60, 70 feet
Right.
as far as they think it does.
But with
Right,
regard to
Councilwoman.
shifting to the north, it's my understanding that the property immediately north of Pine Point does shift. The actual property is not up to the shoreline, it's 37 feet north of the shoreline, if you will, right? So the question that people are asking me is, has my submerged land property been shifted or squished? So in other words, have all the submerged properties been shifted to the north 37 feet? Or could some of them be under some kind of an agreement with its neighboring property that they own what they own? You know,
There could be an agreement that I'm unaware of for a specific, subtract or parcel, if you will, of the larger lands. The the boundary agreements that I'm referring to were boundary agreements that were made for
on land.
big tracts of land
Yeah.
en masse.
Yeah. Okay. So if anyone, I don't want to take any more time this evening, but I'm sure that Mr. Evans can make arrangements for us to meet offline.
Of
So
course.
that we can discuss these, because many people have had questions about this, and it's a big concern for single
And
owners.
we're happy to help answer whatever we can. This was a survey that was prepared in the course of defending litigation. It was prepared to ascertain the exact size of the property that was at issue so that it could be assessed for its value.
If I might, one more quick.
Go ahead,
one.
Councilwoman Botel.
So this city council had no specific knowledge of this survey being done. We didn't specifically approve the survey. We might have approved whatever legal means you had to take to defend the city against this lawsuit, but we had no knowledge. It wasn't concocted by us to steal any land from anybody, correct?
No, ma'am. You gave us our marching orders to defend the city. The survey was coordinated through the city attorney's office, just in terms of we needed a survey. We advised Ms. Wynn that there was a question as to how large the parcel was. But the surveyor worked independently of all of that, just because simply I needed an answer to
No
defend the
political
lawsuit.
pressure was brought to bear to make this happen. in other
No.
words. Thank you. I
No,
have
ma'am.
other questions, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Councilwoman Botel. Any other questions from Ms. Bowman? Councilman McCoy?
Thank you, Mr. Lawson. Mr. Baumann, we gave you marching orders. When exactly was that?
During the shade session that we had to discuss the defense of the lawsuit.
And we voted? Because I don't recall.
I don't think you voted in a shade session.
So we didn't give you marching orders. That's fair to say, right?
No, I guess that's
Thank you.
fair.
All right,
Yes.
so-
I received input and from the city council during the shade session.
Okay, so
Go
is
ahead,
that the
Councilman.
same?
Go ahead.
For a little latitude, Mr. Chair, if you can allow me to go back and forth. Thank you.
Absolutely. Go ahead.
So you said it was done independently, but we authorized this survey. How is that? Because I mean, this is,
Well, no, you
News-
authorized the law firm to defend the city and to hire whatever experts were necessary to defend the lawsuit. The surveyor was a necessary expert because we had to ascertain the size of the property in order to have it appraised in defense of the lawsuit.
so as a matter of policy, we're excluded from whatever costs that you guys incur? Because this is news to me. I didn't know that we, I guess de facto authorized anything, especially when it comes to
Well,
a
no,
survey.
because the city council was advised as to the costs of, legal services as well as experts, is the way we put it. And so the surveyor would fall into that category, just like a real estate appraiser. There was a biologist to assess natural resources, was also an expert.
So the question I'm having is there an exception to our procurement policy when it deals with litigation? Because I don't know what it costs, but I would imagine this is probably above $25,000. So that's a question for Mr. Evans or the attorney.
Yeah,
but
I'm not familiar with the
you know,
city's specific
how
procurement
much was
policy.
this? How much was this survey?
It was over $25,000, all told. When you include the expert testimony, the time spent by the surveyor in deposition and things like that.
Somebody said they knew, but I guess so. I don't know who up here knew about it. I don't know anything about a survey. So a lot of what you're saying, I appreciate it, but I really am not familiar with any of it. And certainly we didn't authorize a specific expenditure in closed session. That's strictly prohibited. So
No, you did not authorize any specific expenditures. What was discussed was as you recall, the firm was going to defend the city and would pull in any experts that were needed to mount the defense.
well, if you had to have $250,000 worth of experts, you can go ahead and authorize and put the city on the hook for that without it even coming to the board. Is that what I'm understanding? Or is there a limit, a threshold?
That I don't know. I presented to the city attorney, and the city attorney approves the retention of an expert.
Okay, Mr. Evans, do you have any information on that? Because clearly, if he's saying that's above 25,000, my question is this the exception to our procurement policy? Because I don't know that it's carved out in our procurement policy to allow someone to just go and basically accrue these expenditures on behalf of this city.
Mr. Chair, if I may,
Go ahead, Mr. Evans.
Councilperson, that's not an answer I have this evening, but that's something that we can certainly get that and provide that to the board.
Okay.
And to be clear, Mr. McCoy, I would never go out and just hire somebody and start. I mean, no, a contract was prepared. It was sent to Ms. Wynn for her approval. The invoices, come with the firm's invoices. Everything is reviewed by the city. But we traditionally coordinate through the city attorney's office.
Thank you, Mr. Bowman. Councilman McCoy.
Thank you,
Thank
Mr.
you.
Chair.
And I did not have any input with the board on even the identity of experts, just that they would be required. And I
Thank you,
think
Attorney. Thank you, Attorney Bowman.
survey and appraiser, I think we said.
Colleagues, any other comments? Thank you for your comments and your presentation, Mr.
Okay,
Bowman.
thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bowman.
If you have any further questions, any of you, feel free to contact me, and I'm happy to answer.
Thank you, Mr. Bowman. Madam Clerk, item 6B.
Item 6B, proclamation declaring the month of May as Mental Health Awareness Month. This item will be presented by Chairperson Douglas Lawson.
So, with this being Mental Health Awareness Month, I wanted to have all advocates within mental health awareness, all speakers and supporters within mental health awareness, if they could come up while we do this proclamation. May is declared Mental Health Awareness Month, so we wanted to make sure that we advocated for mental health awareness. We talked about the importance of mental health awareness in our community, and we had advocates of our community really addressing the needs to address mental health awareness. So we do have advocates from the community, leaders, supporters, and individuals that have focused on mental health awareness. Proclamation from the Office of the Mayor, City of Riviera Beach, Palm Beach County, Florida, declaring the month of May as a Mental Health Awareness Month. Whereas the City of Riviera Beach recognizes mental health is essential to everyone's overall health and well-being. Whereas the City of Riviera Beach understands all Americans face challenges and difficulties in life and have an impact on their mental health. And whereas, according to the 2023 State of Mental Health in America survey, 21% of adults are experiencing at least one mental health illness, which is roughly 50 million people. Whereas 55% of adults with mental illness have not received any treatment. Whereas prevention is an effective way to reduce the burden of mental health conditions, whereas it is evidence mental health conditions are absolute and prevalent, and whereas it's an opportunity to begin eradicating the stigmas associated with mental health, specifically in communities of color. Whereas with practical and timely treatment, those individuals who suffer from mental health conditions can recover and live full, successful, productive lives. Whereas each business, school, government agency, healthcare provider, organization, citizens share the burden of mental health problems and its responsibility for promoting mental health wellness and supporting prevention and treatment efforts. Now, therefore, be it resolved that I, Councilman Douglas Lawson, on behalf of Mayor Ronnie Felder, the city of Riviera Beach, Palm Beach County, by the power vested in me by the residents of Riviera Beach, do hereby proclaim the month of May 2023 as Mental Health Awareness Month in the city of Riviera Beach. In whereas, when I have set my hand and caused the official seal of the city of Riviera Beach to be affixed on the 17th day of May 2023. So guys, thank you. Thank you for being here, and all the people that are here in this community that are supporting and hear about mental health and mental health awareness for this month. Discussion and comments by the board? Thank you, Madam Clerk. 6C.
Yes, 6C was removed from the agenda. It will come back to you guys next month. So we'll go to 6D as in David, a proclamation declaring May 20th, 2023 as Emancipation Day in the city of Riviera Beach. And that is presented by Chair Pro Tem Shirley Lanier.
Good afternoon. I'm Councilperson Shirley Lanier, and I'm here to read a proclamation from the Office of the Mayor declaring May 20th, 2023 as Emancipation Day. Whereas on the 10th of January, 1861, at 12:22 p.m., Florida was the third state to secede from the Union officially. And in Florida, since the 1500s, Africans were enslaved through the Spanish occupation, as well as the French and English control of Florida until Florida entered into the Union. And whereas most enslaved people worked on large plantations, which were in the middle part of the state away from the coast. And whereas throughout the remainder of Florida, only 1/3 of the white population were quote unquote enslavers, but they aligned with the more powerful, more prominent plantation owners in hopes of joining them one day. And let it be noted that not every city in Florida fell under the Confederacy. And in those areas, formerly enslaved persons securing their freedom and recognized Emancipation Day as the 1st of January, 1863, or on other dates occurring before Tallahassee surrendered. And at the end of April 1865, Florida had officially surrendered on the battlefield, and Brigadier General Edward McCook arrived to enforce Emancipation Proclamation and establish a new state government. And on the 10th of May, 1865, Brigadier General Edward McCook, leaving his soldiers at the edge of the city, rode into Tallahassee to greet city officials and to accept the official surrender of the state. And whereas on the 20th of May, 1865, days after the end of the Civil War and 2 years after President Abraham Lincoln issued the Emancipation Proclamation, Brigadier General Edward McCook, accompanied by the 3rd United States Colored Infantry at his side, read the Emancipation Proclamation to the city of Tallahassee. At that time, Confederate troops were officially paroled home, military equipment was surrendered, and federal troops led the celebration by playing John Brown's Body. Now, therefore, be it finally resolved that the mayor and the city council do hereby proclaim May 20th, 2023 as Emancipation Day in the city of Riviera Beach, and encourage all citizens and residents to learn more about this factual and fascinating history and to participate in the inaugural 20th of May Emancipation Day event sponsored by the city of Riviera Beach and presented by the Palm Beach County African Diaspora Historical and Cultural Society at the City of Riviera Beach Library on this Saturday at 6 to 8 p.m. I have the president of the African Diaspora Cultural Society here. I'd like to present her with this proclamation. And for those of you who kind of don't understand this, Juneteenth is considered to be when the slaves were read their freedom for the emancipation in Texas. But in Florida, it was the 20th of May. So we are recognizing that for the city of Riviera Beach. And here is Miss Debbie Raines, who is the president. Thank you, ma'am. All right, thank you so much. Okay. Okay, yes, Ms. Gaines. Ms. Gaines is also a member of the Palm Beach County African Diaspora Historical and Cultural Society. Yes. Thank you. And thank you again for listening to that. But I want you guys to come out this Saturday to understand the history of African Americans in the state of Florida.
Thank you, Councilwoman Lanier. Comments from the board? Thank you again, Councilwoman.
Item 6E, it's a proclamation declaring April 30th through May 6th as Municipal Clerks Week. This will be read by the mayor.
Thank you. Go ahead, Mayor.
Declaring April 30th through May 6, 2023 as Municipal Clerks Week. Whereas the office of a municipal clerk is the oldest among public servants. Municipal Clerks Week was initiated in 1969 by IMC and is endorsed by all the members throughout the United States, Canada, and 15 other countries. The offices of the municipal clerk, a time-honored and vital part of the local government, exists worldwide. Whereas the city of Riviera Beach is dedicated to being your professional resource by providing a professional link between the citizens and local government bodies and agencies of government and other levels. And whereas this Municipal Clerks Week, sponsored by the city of Riviera Beach and all its member governmental organizations, is a week-long series of activities aimed at recognizing municipal clerks and as a vital part that they provide to our state and our community. And whereas during this week, municipal clerks throughout the state of Florida will be acknowledged for their hard work, dedication, and leadership. And now, therefore, I, Ronnie F. Felder, as the mayor of the city of Riviera Beach and Palm Beach County, by the power vested in me by the residents of Riviera Beach, do at this moment proclaim the week of April 30th through May 6, 2023, as Municipal Clerks Week in Riviera Beach, Palm Beach County, Florida, and extend our appreciation to all municipal clerks throughout the county and here in the city of Riviera Beach for their hard work, dedication, and leadership. The witness of which I have hereunto set my hand and caused the official seal of the city of Riviera Beach to be affixed on the 17th day of May, 2023 AD.
Thank you, Mayor. Comments from the board? Thank you. Madam Clerk?
Next, Mr. Chair, we have item 6F, a proclamation declaring the month of May as Jewish American Heritage Month. That would be presented by Dr. Botel.
Thank you. Resolution from the Office of the Mayor, City of Riviera Beach, Palm Beach County, Florida, declaring the month of May as Jewish American Heritage Month. A resolution of the City Council of the City of Riviera Beach, Florida, recognizing May as Jewish American Heritage Month and adopting the International Holocaust Remembrance Alliance working definition of anti-Semitism, denouncing hate crimes against Jews and anti-Semitism in all its various forms. Whereas Jewish immigrants in America, since their arrival in our shores in the 17th century, have played a central role in the creation, growth, freedom, prosperity, and strength of the United States of America, and whereas the biblical and contemporary history of the Jewish people and the enduring values of the Jewish faith were vital sources of inspiration for the founding of our country, the civil rights movement, America's global leadership in the cause of freedom, the commitment to social justice, and many of our nation's most central tenets. And whereas through core Jewish beliefs, such as the creation of a man in the image of God, the infinite value of every human life, the need for a weekly Sabbath, and the importance of education in the lives of children, the Jewish community has helped to define America's character and values. And whereas Jewish citizens who settled in West Palm Beach in 1892 played a central role in political, economic, and social development and served in the Armed Forces of the United States and Florida National Guard. And whereas on April 20th, 2006, President George W. Bush proclaimed that May would be Jewish American Heritage Month. The announcement was the crowning achievement in an effort by the Jewish Museum of Florida and South Florida Jewish community leaders that resulted in resolutions introduced by Representative Debbie Wasserman Schultz in Florida and Senator Arlen Specter of Pennsylvania, urging the president to proclaim a month that would recognize the history of Jewish contributions to American culture. The resolutions passed unanimously, first in the House of Representatives in December 2005 and later in the Senate in February 2006. And whereas Jewish American Heritage Month is a time to celebrate the more than 350 years of American Jewish history and the many Jewish contributions to our history, culture, military, science, government, and artistic and intellectual life. Whereas the City Council of the City of Riviera Beach hereby adopts the International Holocaust Remembrance Alliance working definition of anti-Semitism, which states, anti-Semitism is a certain perception of Jews which may be expressed as hatred toward Jews. Rhetorical and physical manifestations of anti-Semitism are directed toward Jewish or non-Jewish individuals and or their property, towards Jewish community institutions and religious facilities. Whereas the City Council of the City of Riviera Beach hereby denounces and declares zero tolerance for hate crimes against Jews and anti-Semitism in all its forms, and further expresses support and solidarity with our Jewish brothers and sisters in their ongoing struggle against historical and systemic anti-Semitic hate speech and deeds. Now, therefore, be it finally resolved that the Council of the City of Riviera Beach in Palm Beach County does hereby proclaim that May 2023 will be known as Jewish American Heritage Month in the City of Riviera Beach, Florida. In witness whereof, I have hereunto signed my hand and caused the official seal of the City of Riviera Beach to be affixed on the 17th day of May, 2023. Ronnie Felder, Mayor. Tawana Smith, City Clerk. Thank you. Thank you. I would like to welcome representatives from the Jewish Federation to come and just say a few words about Jewish American Heritage Month. And that would be
Hi there. Thank you.
Dawson. Go ahead.
Thank you so much, Dr. Patel. So we are representing the Jewish Community Relations Council of Jewish Federation of Palm Beach County. And on behalf of the Jewish
If you could
community-
state your name for the record.
Oh, sorry.
Please.
My name is
No worries.
Jeff Dawson and
Welcome, Jeff.
and Linda Geller Schwartz.
Welcome, Miss Linda.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having us. And thank you on behalf of the Jewish community in Riviera Beach and beyond. We wanted to express our sincerest gratitude for issuing this proclamation in honoring the contributions of Jewish Americans for Jewish American Heritage Month and for adopting the IHRA definition of anti-Semitism for Riviera Beach. We'd like to particularly thank Commissioner Julia Battelle for spearheading this initiative, Mayor Felder, and everyone on the City Council involved in supporting the Jewish community here in Riviera Beach for the contributions that you've made. Your dedication to the fight against anti-Semitism is truly appreciated. And the importance of this measure cannot be overstated. With record high anti-Semitic incidents in 2022, it's crucial that we take this stand against hate. Florida is actually fourth in the country for anti-Semitic incidents. And even though Jews only account for 2% of the population in this country, we actually account for 60% of all the religious hate crimes and 80% of the religious hate crimes in Florida. So those numbers are deeply concerning, and we need to continue working together to combat this rise in anti-Semitic behavior. And by adopting the IHRA definition of anti-Semitism and honoring Jewish American Heritage Month, Riviera Beach is really setting an example for other cities and communities to follow. And this measure really demonstrates your commitment to protecting Jewish residents from discrimination, prejudice, and violence. So thank you once again to everyone on the City Council and everyone involved in this effort. We look forward to continuing our shared work towards a future of acceptance and equality. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, Councilwoman Botel. That completes awards and presentations. Madam Clerk, if we can go into ordinances on the second and final reading, 8A.
Yes. Item 8A, ordinance number 4229, an ordinance of the City of Riviera Beach, Palm Beach County, Florida, approving a request from the Riviera Beach Community Redevelopment Agency, CRA, and the Riviera Beach Community Development Corporation, CDC, requesting the abandonment of an existing 15-foot by 75-foot alleyway, approximately 1,125 square feet in area, that bisects the properties located at 130 West 11th Street and 120 West 11th Street in Riviera Beach, Florida, attachment A as an apple, and providing for an effective date and other purposes. Mr. Chair, we do not have any public comment cards on item 8A, and this ordinance was advertised in the May 9th Palm Beach Post.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Mr.
You're welcome,
Evans?
sir.
Mr. Chair and members of the board, at this time, I'll have the Director of Development Services, Mr. Clarence Sermons, to make this presentation.
Go ahead, Mr. Sermons.
Thank you, Mr. Manager. Good evening, Mr. Chair, members of council, Honorable Mayor, and Madam Attorney. Again, for the record, I am Clarence Sermons, Director of Development Services, and I am pleased to be before you to make this presentation. So as the, all right, and I believe we have the wrong PowerPoint up at the moment. This item you will find familiar as read into the record that this is a project of the Riviera Beach CRA. This second reading is for the abandonment portion of this project. And it is associated with the Villa La'ans project. And this would be the PowerPoint for item 11A. All right, so as you know, this project is located next to 11th Street. Okay. All right. There's the location of the property subject to this ordinance. Next slide,
Excuse me,
please.
Mr. Chair.
Go ahead, Madam Clerk.
If I may, my teammates here just notified me that there wasn't a motion and a second for this item.
Motion to approve ordinance number 4229.
Second.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Continue.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So the property is shown circumscribed in red on the screen before you right now, and it is located off of 11th Street. Next slide. Again, it's between 130 West 11th Street, 120 West 11th Street, and 1101 Avenue E. I create the subject properties with the parcel control numbers before you. The parcel size is approximately a half acre. The 3 contiguous lots are currently vacant with the zoning of downtown general and the future land use of downtown mixed use. Next slide, please. The applicant's requests in totality involve 3 different items. The first is the abandonment of a 15-foot by 75-foot alleyway, approximately 1,125 square feet in area that bisects the properties located at 130 West 11th Street and 120 West 11th Street. Additionally, there is an application associated with this project for a replat of the 3 lots, as well as a site plan request to create the proposed layout, which is later on your agenda tonight. Next slide, please. Before you is the highlighted area for the proposed abandonment. Next slide. Before you is the proposed plat associated with this project. Next slide. And before you now is the proposed site plan associated with this project, where you can see the 2 residential buildings consisting of 2-story and 3-story townhome products. Next slide, please. Before you now on the screen is the proposed landscape plan. Next slide. Proposed elevations. At the top, you'll see the rear elevations and the front elevations at the bottom of your screen. Next slide. A bird's eye perspective of the proposed project. Next slide. And a human scale perspective of the proposed project. Next slide, please. The city staff has reviewed this project extensively and found the project to be consistent with the city's comprehensive plan and code of ordinances and is now ready for the board's consideration. We've reviewed the project based on the future land use, zoning, levels of service, compatibility with the community, landscaping, lighting, parking, and traffic. Next slide, please. On October 26, 2022, the project was reviewed by the CRA board and was found to be consistent with the goals and objectives of the adopted Riviera Beach Community Redevelopment Plan. Next slide. The associated privilege fee with the abandonment has been remitted to the city. Next slide, please. Staff to date has received no responses or communications from the community regarding this project. Staff recommends that City Council approve the subject application to abandon the identified alleyway without conditions. And staff does have some recommended conditions for the site plan. I can do those now or wait until later in the agenda when that comes up, if it's the preference of the board.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair.
Board members, go ahead, Councilman McCoy.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Sermon, that's exactly my question. You've already went through showing us schematics of the plat and also the site plan. But this item is the abandonment. If you do the conditions now, do we need to hear them again when you bring the site plan back? And I guess that's the 2 more items down.
Correct. I believe it's 11A is the associated site plan resolution. I'm happy to go through it all now, so you don't have to hear another review of this project.
Mr. Chair,
Councilman McCoy, go ahead.
I would like that, and I do have some additional questions regarding the abandonment. Thanks.
Thank you. Board members, are we okay with hearing all the information now?
Fine with that.
Go ahead, Ms. Sermons.
Yes, Mr. Chair. Staff recommends that City Council approve the subject applications, including the site plan to construct 3 buildings, 2 to 3 stories in height, having a total of 12 residential units within the downtown general zoning district with the following site plan resolution conditions. 1 is that construction must be initiated within 18 months of the effective date of the resolution, or it will be considered invalid. 2, a 2-year landscaping performance bond for 110% of the value of the landscaping and irrigation shall be required before a certificate of occupancy is issued for the site. Next slide, please. 3, that City Council authorizes staff to approve future amendments to this site plan administratively, so long as the site plan does not deviate greater than 5% from the originally approved site plan. 4, the development must receive final certificate of occupancy from the city for all buildings or units approved within 5 years of the approval of the adopting resolution, or the adopting resolution shall be considered null and void. 5, all future advertising must state that the development is located within the city of Riviera Beach. Next slide, please. Once approved, this resolution shall supersede any previous site plan approval resolutions associated with this property. Next, adoption and approval of the proposed abandonment and replat shall become effective prior to the adoption and approval of the proposed site plan. And 5, I'm sorry, that numbering is off there. But lastly, permits shall stipulate that commencement of construction shall occur within 2 years of approval. Otherwise, use of the subject right-of-way shall revert back to the city. And that concludes the staff presentation.
Thank you, Ms. Sermons. Councilman McCoy, you got a follow-up?
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Sermons, you mentioned replat. I don't see an item in here on our agenda for the replat. Was that already done?
No, and your observation is correct. The replat, if these two move forward, would be before you at the next city council meeting.
Okay, so regarding the abandonment, this is the first project that I know of since we adopted the, I guess the fee schedule, if you will, for our abandonments. And I'm just curious, I looked at the backup on page 14, and it appears to represent whatever that calculation is. Did our ordinance, I think it says privilege fee amount, $2.82 times 1,158 square footage. Is that the basis for the fee that we charge, the $3,200? Is that the formula, in other words?
The formula is based on a percentage of the value of the land surrounding the area to be abandoned.
Not the area itself. So there was no appraisal done on the subject area that's being abandoned?
No, the valuation is based on the county tax appraiser's office, their valuations of the property.
And that's why? Is that because of our ordinance?
Yes, the ordinance set it up that way so that the subjectivity of dueling appraisers, so to speak, can be removed from this process of calculating the evaluation of an abandonment.
Okay. In these, 2021 property appraisers, land value is based on 2021?
I believe that would have been the most recent year available when this was initially submitted. I believe so.
That's my question. So is it at the time of submittal or currently? Because I know at least the 2022 numbers should have been available, which certainly would have driven that up, at least for parcel A and parcel B.
Yes,
So is this at the time of application?
correct? The time of application.
Okay, and then there's a 90% number, whatever that means. What does that represent?
90% of the valuation of the land, if you're referring to the metrics for the calculation, 90% of the valuation of the tax appraiser is what is due for the privilege fee.
Okay. All righty, thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. Colleagues, any other comments?
Mr. Sherman, let me ask, so after these, after the plat comes back and so when is the groundbreaking and when does this happen for this particular property? Any idea of when it's gonna get started or?
No, I would have to defer to the applicant on it. And I will say the applicant, the CRA and their agent for this project is here. They may be able to provide insight into that from the staff perspective. We have maximum amounts of time that they have to break ground and begin the project, or these approvals would become null and void. But as far as when they expect to do so, we don't have that information.
We have the CRA director here, so
Yeah.
Mr.
So,
Evans.
Mr. Chair, if I may.
Go ahead.
And I see the Director of Neighborhood Services, Ms. Jenkins, coming up to the podium as well. I anticipate that we would be prepared for groundbreaking and construction-related or site work activities, I believe, the first of the year, but Ms. Jenkins can provide additional clarity with respect to that. Ms. Jenkins?
Good evening, Anita Jenkins, Director of Neighborhood Services. Mr. Evans is spot on. We expect to break ground before the end of the year, beginning of 2024.
Thank you, Ms. Jenkins. Councilwoman, any other comments?
and what is the timeline for that completion? I mean, I know there's a lot of variables in terms of construction and this, but I mean, just generally.
We expect 18 to 24 months.
Okay,
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, Ms. Jenkins.
thank you.
Mr. Chair, also,
Go ahead, sir.
there are subsequent elements, phase 2 and phase 3 that will be shared with the board also concurrently during that time frame. So you will also see that particular site really take form here in the next couple of months with subsequent phases that we want to bring forward for your consideration.
Thank you, Mr. Evans. Any other comments from the board?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Councilman, well, before we go back to Councilman McCoy, Councilwoman Julie Botel, Miller Anderson. Go ahead, Councilman McCoy.
Thank you. I really did not want to ask these questions, but I guess we forget that we're in a public hearing and we start talking about extraneous information. But, I just don't understand how we can give up permanently 1,200, actually 1,100 square foot of easement for $3,200. I'm not sure I understand that formula. So certainly I would like to at least make sure, and certainly nothing to staff, but it just doesn't seem to me that that is even equitable, that we would permanently convey 1,200 square feet, give or take, of alleyway for $3,200. And even considering, the formula that you referenced, Mr. Sermons, it just to me doesn't seem like that's appropriate. So that's all I had. And I wanted to not say this during this item, but we started talking about ribbon cuttings and groundbreakings and that sort of thing. So certainly I want to make sure that it doesn't even seem fair with the way real estate is at a premium. I don't know how. All right, that's all I have. Thanks.
Thank you, Councilman. Madam Clerk?
Councilperson Julia Botel.
Yes.
Councilperson Kashamba Miller Anderson.
Yes.
Councilperson Trodrick McCoy.
Yes.
Chair Pro Tem Shirley Lanier.
Yes.
Chairperson Douglas Lawson.
Yes.
That vote passes, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Ordinance first reading, item 9A.
Item 9A, ordinance number 4230, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Riviera Beach, Palm Beach County, Florida, amending Chapter 31 of the Code of Ordinance entitled Zoning, creating Section 31-9 entitled Reasonable Accommodation Procedures, providing for severability and conflicts, and providing an effective date. Mr. Chair, we do have one public comment card on this item. The acceptance of public comment cards are now closed, and this ordinance too was advertised in the May 9th Palm Beach Post.
Thank you, Madam Clerk.
Motion to approve ordinance number 4230.
Moved and properly seconded. Ms. Evans?
Mr. Chair and members of the board, at this time, I'll ask the Director of Development Services, Mr. Clarence Sermons, to make this presentation.
Go ahead, Mr. Sermons. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Manager. Thank you again, Mr. Chair. For this presentation, I have prepared a brief set of visuals for the item related to reasonable accommodations, but to summarize what this ordinance is attempting to do is to address two federal laws that are greatly applicable to our land development regulations for the city. One being the Fair Housing Act, or the FHA law, and the second being Title II of the American with Disabilities Act, or ADA. And respectively, one aims at the prevention of discrimination against persons with handicaps in the use or enjoyment of a dwelling, and the second prohibits state and local governments from discriminating against individuals with disabilities. Reasonable accommodations in the land use and zoning context means providing individuals with disabilities or developers of housing for people with disabilities flexibility in the application of land use and zoning and building regulations, policies, practices, and procedures, or even waiving certain requirements when it is necessary to eliminate barriers to housing opportunities. Staff has created this text amendment in concert with legal advisement to create a process to guide the various requests for reasonable accommodations received each year by the city. These requests for reasonable accommodations can include a multitude of things, but for example, they could include a relief from definitions in our code, minimum application requirements, minimum parking regulations, interpretations of different zoning uses. The city has for years processed these types of requests. However, it has been in the absence of ordinance language guiding how they should take place. And so that's what we are attempting to accomplish with the ordinance on first reading before you today. It includes language for creating definitions related to reasonable accommodations, minimum application requirements, timelines that the applicant as well as city staff must adhere to, criteria for determinations for approval or denial of these requests, as well as a process for appeals. Staff has reviewed this item and believes this provides for a fair and orderly process for receiving and reviewing reasonable accommodation requests. The Planning and Zoning Board unanimously recommended approval of this item on April 27th, 2023, and staff recommends that City Council approve this proposed text amendment. And that concludes the staff presentation.
Thank you for comments, Mr. Sermons. Colleagues, board members, comments?
Yes.
Councilman McCoy, go ahead.
Thank you. Mr. Sermons, this is great. And, I know certainly this was something that was done in planning and zoning maybe 6 or 8 years ago. But for whatever reason, it's great that it's here because it's definitely necessary. However, looking at this, there are some broad guidelines in here, but it does provide some subjectivity. And my question to you is, has there, in your experience or what you've been able to obtain, been a determination of these reasonable accommodations by way of some sort of board or special magistrate as opposed to staff?
I've seen you're referring to other municipalities and how they process them. I'm aware of some cities that do it at the city administration level. I have seen models where it's done in a hearing format, but I believe it's most common that it's at a staff level.
Okay. Is there, because I haven't read it all, but is there an option to appeal?
Yes.
And that appeals to who?
I may have a moment. The applicant may appeal the decision within 30 days. All appeals shall contain a statement containing sufficient detail of the grounds for appeal. Appeals shall be to a development special magistrate as set forth in this code. So this would be the same legal entity that reviews variance hearings for the city. If appeal is requested for a determination on a reasonable accommodation, they would staff would set a hearing before the development special magistrate so that their concerns could be heard.
Thank you. And the reason I ask is because I know our code requires specific experiences for the special development magistrate, but relatively, this is, I'm not sure if you would generally find that, but why wouldn't we choose the city council as an alternative to appeal?
That is a question. I'm not aware of that model for hearing appeals. I suppose the same question could be asked for any variance, which these are essentially a variance based on someone having a handicap. But again, this is the first reading. So if there are some changes that are desired by the board, we're happy to mark this up and make those. But I'm not aware of that type of format for this type of appeal.
Well, actually, it used to exist here. We had a zoning board of appeals here in the city of Riviera Beach up until about maybe 2012, give or take. But I would much rather someone had a disability, a bona fide disability, and for whatever reason, staff didn't believe that they were entitled to that variance. And for lack of a better word, better term, if they didn't have it granted, I want them to be able to have an option of being able to appeal to a board which contains multiple members and not one single member. And I know certainly your office, or better yet, your department has had a few variance hearings. And I believe just from a policy standpoint, I would much rather see the board be that appellate arm. And I offer that up to the members to consider because I don't want, this to work because ironically, right, if you go to development services and you have a variance, development services picks up the phone and calls the special magistrate to appear at that hearing. And then if you appeal, that's who you appeal to, the very people that they have sought out or that's on contract with the city, as opposed to if there wasn't a board, then it would be a body such as ours. So that would be what I would offer up for the members' consideration. Certainly in light of that used to be the process here in the city of Riviera Beach. And I guess beyond that, right, I don't even know what the standard of review is. And this is probably worth looking into. What is the standard of review if you not successful with that special master? You can't, I guess you could possibly go to circuit court with a writ of certiorari, but I just think it's a better option if the appeal ultimately came to the board to decide.
Thank you. Go ahead, go ahead.
If
Mr.
I may
Lewis.
respond from the staff perspective, that much is true. We did have a zoning board of appeals prior to a development special magistrate. And from my perspective, staff would work with either one. I would say the preference is the development special magistrate, at least from where I sit, because we know what type of review perspective is going to be. That person has a legal license, and they're coming into the situation looking at the applicable laws based on what the city has on its books and any applicable county or state laws that are relevant to the situation. And so we know what type of standard of review is going to be black and white based on what the code says or does not say. And that type of standard of review and dependability does assist staff in having a predictable sense of development environment. When it's a board of citizens, I think it can be very subjective whether a variance is appropriate, and it may not be based on the legal parameters. Then the same thing with reasonable accommodations. It may not be based on those federal and state laws regarding housing, but more so the thoughts of a board of appointed or elected or citizens that would weigh in on it. So staff would work with either setup. We've done both in the city, but I would say that the preference would be to work with the legal person who would decide this based on from a legal perspective, as opposed to a group of citizens.
Follow up.
Go ahead, Councilman.
I hate to do this, but I have to, and I think you know where I'm going. If what you're saying was true, we wouldn't have had the writ of certiorari filed against the city in February of this year. The very thing you're suggesting was the very thing that was challenged, that the zoning special master or the special magistrate for the variance hearing was not qualified. In fact, for some reason, we had someone presiding over these variance hearings who didn't have the requisite experience that was required by our own code. So you're going to have to convince me a little bit better than that. And for that reason, I'm going to offer up a motion that we send staff back to amend this to replace the special master with the city council.
Motion on the floor. Do we have a second? Motion dies for lack of second. Board members, any other comments?
Yes.
Any follow-up, Councilman?
Yes, I didn't expect them to know, because, one of the reasons is because when we make mistakes like we did in February, nobody wants to talk about that. But we employed a special master that presided over 3 or 4 different variances that wasn't even qualified to do that. And you know how embarrassing that is when you have a developer that wants to come in and seek a deviation from the code, and the very person or the very, if you will, judge that decides that didn't even meet the requisite qualifications in our code. For all intents and purposes, I feel like I'm just as qualified as she is in that realm. And that's why I offered that up, members. So, maybe you don't understand, but that's real. And I don't know how much staff tells you that, but it's embarrassing to me when I get pulled over in the airport to be told about, a procedural error that had fatal consequences for a development in the city of Riviera Beach. So while I don't, have issues if you don't understand, but I certainly would like staff to do a better job when bringing us items, especially when they bring a special development magistrate who's supposed to preside over these hearings, that they do have the requisite and required experience. For all intents and purposes, you might as well just give me a firefighter's uniform and let me go out and perform, fire rescues without even going into a fire academy. That's just what we did in that situation. And I made that analogy to say, if we did that in the past, we might as well make the city council do it here today. That's all I have. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Councilman. Colleagues, any other comments? Madam Clerk?
Mr. Chair, we do have a public comment card.
Thank you.
Mr. Fane Lozman.
Welcome, Mr. Lozman. You have 3 minutes. Thank you.
Thane Lozman. Mr. McCoy, you're right on. I'm going to tell you why. My history of fighting political corruption started in 2003 trying to get a World War II veteran a wheelchair ramp at my expense. And what happened was this marina director wouldn't let us put the wheelchair ramp in North Bay Village. One thing led to another. Ultimately, I was able to get 4 of the 5 elected commissioners in North Bay Village arrested in a 9-month period. All started with a wheelchair ramp. I learned a lot about the ADA Act from a bad injury I sustained, where I broke my pelvis and my hip socket and had to be screwed back together in an 8-hour operation. So I have a mobility disorder, okay? I asked Sermons for electric so that I could go to my property and get a little portable ice machine that has a little pad to cool my leg off when it hurts, because I don't take pain pills anymore. That's a bad road to go down. Sermons just blew me off. He didn't care. Even though Florida's private property Bill of Rights that was voted in by you guys to the comprehensive plan requires that people have that type of accommodation. You know, in order to keep people out of my property, I needed an electric pole. I had an electric pole that I could use for my ice machine, I could use for cameras, I could use for lights. Sermons took that away. Even though Casper Electric, I paid them a few $1,000s to put in electric, he took it away. Okay, I asked for a reasonable accommodation with the code enforcement magistrate. I said, I need the electric for my ice machine. No, I'm the only person in the state of Florida can't have electric on their property or a fence, even though this board right here passed Florida's private property Bill of Rights and incorporated it into the comprehensive plan after Governor DeSantis signed it on June 29th of 2021. Sermons is not qualified to be the development director because he has ignored those who have an ADA disability. Okay, the only way to really get an ADA relief is to go to federal court and file an ADA claim. Okay, is that what people have to do? I asked to talk to the special magistrate, just blew me off. Just like he blew off McCoy a year ago. He just doesn't give a damn. He just does what he wants to do. But we have definitive proof right now to show I asked for an accommodation, which I shouldn't have even had to ask for based on the private property Bill of Rights. He refused to give it to me. So when I visit my property, I live a life of pain with no ice machine. What are you 5 going to do about it? You voted in the private property Bill of Rights into the city's comp plan. What are you going to do about it now that I've told you I need electric on my property? Anything? I'm the only guy who can't have electric or a fence. You 5 are responsible for letting that happen. And Sermons, just like people have said over the years, he needs to go. He doesn't understand the private property Bill of Rights. He doesn't understand reasonable accommodation, and he retaliates against people that try to fight for the rights under the state constitution.
Thank you for your comments, Mr. Lozman. Go ahead, Councilman.
Mr. Chair.
Go ahead, follow up.
Thank you. Yeah, just follow up. In fact, I found exactly what I was looking for without going into details. I'll just tell you what this says. And this we do know to be true. So members, I would love to have your attention. A search of the magistrate's experience and bio indicates that she works primarily as a juvenile dependency attorney and lacks any land development and zoning experience. The magistrate's order is chock full of errors, lending credence to her lack of understanding of basic land use and zoning laws. A cursory review of the order indicates that the magistrate simply cut and pasted the city staff report and Integra's justification statement. Members, can I have a shot at doing that? If all we're doing is cut and pasting, that's why I offered up that motion, because, you know, certainly I don't need to delegate a responsibility that we have the ability to do. And I would love to have the help of the mayor in this matter, because certainly everything staff brings before it should not be rubber stamped. This ordinance in itself is multiple pages and it's voluminous. So I would love to have your support, and that incorporates, right, redress. If a person has issue, they have a right to redress of government, and that's constitutional foundations. So that's why I offer up that motion for amendment. Thank you, members.
Councilman McCoy, if you could restate the motion that you stated earlier.
Sorry
you
it
asked for.
failed. So, I mean, unless you want me to reconsider it.
If it could be reconsidered, if you could restate it so I could hear the motion for consideration.
Mr. Chair, I would ask that we move to ask staff to incorporate city council as opposed to a special master in this reasonable accommodation ordinance.
And I guess listening to the motion, I will second that motion if we're going to take it in for reconsideration. But the reason I heard a different terminology as to going back out to recook or to rebuild this item versus incorporate what you're saying into the ordinance that we currently have. What are you asking for staff to do within your motion?
Instead of us using a special master as prescribed in this proposed ordinance, replace
city
that with the
council.
city council,
And you
correct?
want to have that updated change? Do you want him to go back and redo this and you want this represented back to the board? Or do you want to incorporate this into the ordinance?
I would, obviously it's going to take more because there's a lot of sections that has to be referenced. I would like them to incorporate it if that's the desire of the board.
Correct.
And ultimately, right, here's what we give up. If we allow a special master to continue to operate as the zoning master for reasonable accommodations, then this will never, ever come before the city council. So what you're giving up is a permanent right to be able to redress or hear redress from anybody that has an appeal taken at the staff level.
If we can take that into reconsideration, if your motion is back on the floor, I will second that and further for discussion.
Mr. Chair?
Mr. Sermons.
If I may just interject from the staff standpoint. So I think there are different models of how municipalities handle variance or reasonable accommodation requests. And some are different. Reasonable accommodations are a little different than regular variances because you're dealing with a protected class. And one of the things that is important for localities to do is protect the privacy of a protected class, especially if there's some type of health-related disability that they have. So bringing it before a city council for an appeal does run a higher likelihood that their privacy could be infringed upon. We do have, of course, the development special magistrate approach, which we put in this one, that staff thinks is more consistent with what we've done before. The other option is to reinstate a zoning board of appeals, which the city had before. That would change a little bit of how we handle these processes because it would be another board that we have to do appointments for, that you all would have to more than likely make appointments for, and that we are making sure it's staffed and we get volunteers for. So there's different challenges with that system as well. The development special magistrate is appointed by the legal department. So I think making sure that the persons we want or that we believe are appropriate are appointed to the development special magistrate position are in place would be the thing to consider if we keep that model. If we go to back to a zoning board of appeals, again, that's just an additional board that we have to make appointments for. If we do it in front of city council, I would say that would be very unusual for the elected body to vote on the variances for projects that may come to them later for final approval for a site plan approval or something like that. But if you're also making the decision on a variance necessary for it to move forward, then I think that would be some interesting interactions that we would want to look at from a legal perspective. But I think those are at least the three models that are on the table currently based on this conversation. And again, staff is happy to look at one or all three of those before a second hearing on this item.
Mr. Chair.
Follow up.
McCoy, then Councilwoman Julie Botel.
I'll be very brief. Mr. Sermons, what you just said doesn't make sense. A special magistrate is done in a public meeting, so there's no anonymity in a special magistrate process. In fact, it's recorded and the record must be made available upon request. So certainly a special magistrate is not afforded any more secrecy than what happens in any other public meeting. So I don't know if that really carries weight. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. Those were my comments as well, but go ahead, Councilwoman Julie Botel.
Well, I was going to say, I have different reasons for not thinking that that this body would be the most appropriate one, and that is that it could lend itself to political influence. And I would rather see staff go back and come up with some alternatives if this special magistrate is not appropriate. Number one, we should be hiring people who understand what it is they're looking at. I mean, if we had somebody in place that really just cut and pasted, shame on us for having that person as a special magistrate. But I would rather staff analyze this and come back with some recommendations as to what they think would be an alternate board to examine. I would not say that city council would be that board.
Thank you. Mr. Evans and Councilwoman Botel. I'm sorry, Councilwoman Lanier. Go ahead, Mr. Evans.
Mr. Chair, a recommendation that the board can also consider is setting forth the criteria and experience that said person has to have, or a situation whereby that individual that serves as that special master is confirmed by the board. And so you will know if they have the requisite knowledge, skills, and abilities to serve in that particular capacity. So that's something that you could consider. We can do the research and provide you with that information as to what other municipalities are doing, but I've never seen a situation whereby the governing body serves in that particular capacity. There are items that are protected by HIPAA, so in the preparation of an agenda item that would go before that special master, some information can be concealed for the purposes of preservation of HIPAA. So there are some things that would have to be considered as part of that particular process. And then by the second reading, we can certainly provide you with examples of agenda items or how other municipalities handle the very same thing. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Evans. Go ahead, Councilwoman Lanier.
I wanted to say that the motion died for a lack of a second, which means that it has to come back from somebody on the prevailing side. That's the first thing. The second thing is that I have to agree with Dr. Botel in the sense that if you are having the individual come to a board to get any type of answer, for lack of better terms, it does lend itself for influence. So if you have, and I saw that it was pulled from the agenda, that the special magistrate, I'm not sure if that was the same position. It wasn't. Okay, well, anyway, I have to agree with the fact that if we do come up with a set of criteria for a special magistrate, then that's something that I could agree to, but not to agree to bringing it to this board to be able to make that decision when it could be unduly influenced. But we are back to the question of the motion that was not seconded and then brought back, which cannot be unless it was from the prevailing side.
Madam Clerk, Madam Attorney,
We're looking at it right now.
any other comments from the board while they're reviewing?
The attorney is looking it up because our guide doesn't say that.
Okay.
So give us a second.
Madam, Mr. Chair.
Go ahead, Council.
So I think what the Chair Pro Tem is referring to items on reconsideration that has been voted on. This item has not been voted on, so therefore there aren't anybody that can say that they're the prevailing side. So accordingly, if there's a desire, and I don't want to push it, right? If the members don't want it, cool. We don't have to go through all the trouble of having them to research it. I mean, I think the only person we haven't heard from is Councilperson Miller Anderson, but there's no sense of going back through it. I mean, it is what it is. If the board doesn't want to do it, then we can leave it at that.
I'm sorry, Madam Clerk.
Mr. Chair, Mr. McCoy is correct.
Correct. So we can, go ahead, Councilwoman
I'm
Lanier.
just saying there was no motion to reconsider that motion.
Madam Clerk,
Say it
we
again,
do.
Ms. Chair Pro Tem Lanier, we didn't hear you.
No, I was saying there was a motion to reconsider. Was there a motion to reconsider that vote? Because it died for a second.
He made a motion to amend the motion. That died for lack of a second, but it was never voted on. So it was never considered because we didn't vote.
So what we'll do is, being that it wasn't voted on and it was reconsidered, Councilman McCoy, if you want to withdraw your motion, or if we can dispose of the motion by taking a vote.
I withdraw, Mr. Chair.
And I withdraw the second. Madam Clerk?
Councilperson Julia Botel,
Yes.
Councilperson Kashamba Miller Anderson,
Yes. Oh, I'm sorry. Excuse me. I'm sorry, I was looking at you.
I don't know if you want to vote on that now. This is on you. Oh, we're voting on the original ordinance. Yeah, the original. Ordinance 9A.
Yes. Mr. Councilperson Troderick McCoy,
Yes.
Chair Pro Tem Shirley Lanier,
Yes.
Chairperson Lawson.
Yes.
That vote passes, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Madam Clerk.
Currently, it's 7:30, so before we take the next item, you do have 8 public comment cards.
Thank you, Madam Clerk.
The acceptance of public comment cards for general comments are now closed.
Public comments shall begin at 7:30 unless there is no further business of the City Council, which in the event it shall begin sooner. In addition, if an item is being considered at 7:30, then comments from the public shall begin immediately after the item has been concluded. Please be reminded that the City Council Board has adopted rules of decorum governing public comment during official meetings, which has been posted at the front desk. In an effort to preserve order, if any rules are not adhered to, the City Council chairperson may have any disruptive speaker or attendee removed from the podium, from the meeting, or from the building, if necessary. Please govern yourselves accordingly. Madam Clerk, if we can go into the 8 public comments.
Yes, we have Mr. Eric Williams, Ms. Rochelle Baker Hughes, and Ms. Lady Goldmarch.
Welcome to the podium, Mr. Eric Williams. You have 3 minutes. Hello, sir.
Good evening, Board. I was up here a couple years ago with my oldest son, Micah, when he was #1 in the state of Florida for 9-year-olds. And not to be outdone, we all know about sibling rivalries. So his little brother, as of this past weekend, is #1 for 8-year-olds in the state of Florida. So, for this is they race BMX, which is an Olympic sport, and Micah he's number 15 in the state for 10 experts. This was his #1. He wanted to show his #1. Again, didn't want to be outdone by his little brother. They race for Okehilly All-Stars. They wore their jerseys because they have, sponsors for their teams, for the team that they race for. One of the main sponsors is in the city just north of us of Lake Park, OYM, which is On Your Mark bicycle shops. They were very helpful with us, getting them ready and getting their bikes ready for the races. But we just wanted to just show the accolade and just, big up the city of Riviera Beach. And I spoke to one of the officers outside, Officer Phillips, and we would like to offer for the PAL or anybody in the city that would like to be a part of the sport. I teach, and we go out to the track on Saturdays and Saturday mornings, and they have free, you can come in, try it out for free, see if you like it. And that's basically it. You guys want to say something? No?
Yes.
Daniel? Go ahead. Go ahead. Quick.
Tell us your name, young man.
What's your name?
My name is Daniel Williams. I'm in 2nd grade At Dr. Mary McLeod Bethune Elementary School. I'm a second grader. I'm 8 years old.
They know that. Can your mother say something?
One thing I want to also add is that I am very proud of both of my sons. What I have to say is that Daniel is on the autism spectrum, so I was listening very carefully to what you all were sharing, and I think it is very important to highlight our kids of all abilities. So thank you very much.
Thank you, guys. Thank you so much for your comments.
Great trophy. Excellent trophy.
Ms. Baker Hughes?
After Ms. Baker Hughes, we have Lady Goldwire, Mr. Bill Walatich, and Lisa Wilcox.
Hi, my name is Rochelle Baker Hughes. Way to go, guys, to the guys in the back. I got to give them another round of applause. I will give up some seconds for them. That's amazing. Rochelle Baker Hughes, Lone Pine Estates. First of all, I want to thank Mr. Sermons for responding to my many emails to you wherever you went to. Thank you very much. Why I'm up here is we do have a second reading coming up regarding our golf course land that is that Lone Pine Estates backs up to. We all know the golf course is closed, but the land is still there, and we residents we do not want that property rezoned. We would rather work with the owner or the city or whoever to keep it recreational, to bring people into the city to enjoy the city and not make us go out of the city to find something to do. So there's other reasons too. That golf course, if you've never been out on that golf course, it's very unique. It's not your typical golf course where the houses are far away from the holes, the tee boxes, and the fairways. We sit, those of us who have homes on the golf course, we sit right on top of that. To rezone it to anything other than recreational would actually impede on us. We talked about mental health. I will tell you right now, impeding on our community would probably cause a lot of emotional and mental stress for the residents that live there, me included. We have bought in there, I'm sorry, we bought in there to be part of this community, and if you came out and you talked to us, we have a great community with many different cultures, and we take care of each other. We come together, and I've lived there for 21 years. I don't think I'd want to live anywhere else. But if it got rezoned, unfortunately, I probably would have to leave the city. And I would be very disappointed to leave the city because this has been my home for 21 years. I know people in my development, it's been their home for over 40 years. So please, 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 please take into consideration and vote no to rezone that land. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Welcome to the podium, Ms. Moore.
Hello, how are you? Thanks for the mental health awareness proclamation. My name is Lady March Goldwire, and I want to start two things that I wanted to bring to you guys' attention. I want to start by just calling out a couple of names and saying if they are familiar to any of you. The first would be George Johnson. The second would be Daniel McWilliams or Billy Eisengrein. I'll tell you the significance of those names in just a few minutes, but I thought it was phenomenal to see the kids over at coming from Washington Elementary partnering with Harold Claudio, the artist here locally, who assisted them in painting the mural in the back of the fire station along the wall. The concern is, and we mentioned it a few months back, with the mural that will be painted and presented on the front of the fire station. If I'm not mistaken, I certainly didn't know the names of the 3 individuals on that mural, but George Johnson, Dan McWilliams, Billy Eisengrind, they were the firefighters from 9/11 who the commemorative stamp was fashioned after in New York when they went to restore the flag. And as pivotal as that is and important as that is, we come from a community that has a series of fire science champions, starting with some of the greats, Mr. Richard Wester, we had Tanya Maxwell, we had Troy Perry, we have Mr. Curd here, so many of the other ones, Mr. Alvin, Mr. Golden. I don't want to see us make the same mistake that was made down in Boynton, where there was an extraction of the African American presence to the Fire Science Commission or the fire science community and the community in and of itself. My ask is that you make a reconsideration for the front of the mural. I don't know who decided on that selection, but I think it should be remnant of the people who have contributed to this community and keeping it safe. It's the least we could do, being that it is at the forefront of the main corridor coming into the city. The last thing I want to say is we are erecting a Black Business Association here in Riviera Beach, Merchants Association. We are looking to build off of some of the momentum coming out of Lake Park with their mixed-use corridor. We've had a lot of conversation about what's going to happen downtown, but I'm hopeful Mr. Evans and some of the other powers that be will make consideration for an uptown corridor that can probably contribute to some of the needed tax revenues that we will likely have to talk about in the event you do have to bring on $80 million, $115 million to make up some ground. With that, I hope that you guys will have and keep an open mind to some of the suggestions that are being made or being presented in the next couple of months. For that, Riviera Beach is the only city that has residents that have to go outside of the city for any decent entertainment.
Thank you, Ms. March.
Next is Mr. Bill Walatich, Ms. Lisa Wilcox, Ms. Cindy March.
Welcome to the podium, Mr. Bill. You have 3 minutes.
Good evening, council, people. The time is getting close for the second reading of the rezoning issue of the Lone Pine Golf Course property. A second petition is being signed as of now by the residents to stop the rezoning. This petition reinforces the previous petition that was signed by a vast majority of the residents. There has not, and I emphasize not, been a loss of interest. The residents of Lone Pine and surrounding communities are more adamant now than ever before not to rezone. We are confident the council members who voted no are remaining steadfast to not rezone. The council people who voted to rezone, we hope, have a change of mind by considering what the residents really want. By voting no to rezoning, the council is and would be showing they are agreeing with the wishes of the residents. At this time, it's necessary to review just a few of our concerns about rezoning. We have a serious drainage issue that has been going on for years. This would only get worse with any development of the golf course property. The traffic situation just along Military Trail is very dangerous. Let's not add to that danger with the enormous increase in traffic that an additional development would ultimately produce. Our area roadways are unprepared now for the current traffic, let alone with the additional traffic. Crime will also increase, putting more strain on the city's police force. Need I say more about that? The value of our homes will decrease due to new construction. I don't know any neighbor in Lone Pine that can afford this devaluation of their property. The city will also lose a vast area of necessary green space. As a reminder to the council and residents, it's important to realize the golf course is just closed. Nothing else has happened. The golf course owners closed the course because, as they stated at a previous meeting, they weren't making any money. That's a good one. In conclusion, as council members, you must stop the rezoning once and for all and let us residents enjoy our safety, our community, and our environment for many years to come. We thank you in advance for your support of not to rezone. One other quick note is the golf course was closed 30-some years ago, and we had no problem. People were concerned that we would have animals and plant life that just wouldn't quit. Golf course was closed for 2 years. We had no problem until they decided to redevelop it. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments.
Mr. Chair, after
Clerk.
Ms. Lisa Wilcox, we have Ms. Cindy March and Commissioner Doss.
Welcome to the podium, Ms. Lisa.
Good evening. My name is Lisa Wilcox, and I live in Lone Pine Estates for the last 34 years. I just wanted to go ahead and thank those of you that voted with the planning and zoning not to rezone last time. And I just wanted to continue to petition the others that have voted against that and to rezone to reconsider. Our community is a model community. It is not without great effort that it is a model community. Our HOA does a wonderful job. I document the gunfire that I hear on Haverhill. It's at a continuous measure that I hear it. So I document every time I hear it. Our HOA is constantly reinforcing that Haverhill wall. They're making sure that the homeowners are doing their part to keep that wall from being breached. We've got shopping carts and different things that are allowing people to crawl over and little breaches in the wall. And our homeowners association, just at our last meeting, decided that if the homeowners will not fix the wall, that they will go ahead and pay for it. They will notify them, and then they will be responsible for reimbursing the HOA. They're on it, you know. Without Lone Pine keeping that at bay, you've got that encroaching on a new development. So it's, you know, there's a tagline for you: buy in Covington Pines where you too can hear gunfire. It won't just need to be a wall, it'll need to be a soundproof wall, and you're not going to have that buffer there. One thing I wanted to read to you real quick is Dr. Miles Monroe. I don't know if you're familiar with him, a great Bahamian influencer and agent of change, gave us this definition for the model and standard of a community. He said, the model community has an orderly and energetic life about it, in which every person can reach his full potential in conjunction with others for the greatest good of each individual and the community. According to this definition, Lone Pine Estates is a model community. This model is a win-win for the people who live in the community and the people who govern the community. Please let the city council be known for being the city council that did the right thing for one of their model communities by voting no to rezone the Lone Pine Golf Course, and for also voting in line with your planning and zoning. We appreciate you all so much. We appreciate what you do. We appreciate how you consider the people, and we know you have a lot. We pray for you all. And we appreciate you considering the homeowners in Lone Pine Estates. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments, Ms. Lisa.
Next is Ms. Cindy March.
Good evening, Council.
Welcome to
I'm
the podium,
Cindy
Ms. March.
March. You know what? I wish we had about 2 or 3 more people like Trodrick McCoy. You're smart. Speaking smart and not making a smart move, you're done. You all done made some bad decisions over the time. Just like with spending over $200,000 for a $60,000 settlement. That was not called for. And also, Doug, I see you doing the mental illness thing. I just pray that you're doing it from the goodness of your heart, because mental illness is real. I am one of them. I've been healed for over 35 years. And I thank God my story is somebody else's glory, so I'm not ashamed. It's real. You can't do it for photo op. You can't do it for personal gain. And Kashama, I know I don't agree with everything you say or do, but I was in the hospital And lady came to see me that Sunday. I was in the hospital for 4 days. I was on my way out. Didn't know I was that sick, but God healed me. And she had a conversation. When she mentioned your name, I already didn't want to hear no noise, didn't want to see no light. I just was trying to pray to get off that sick bed. But she mentioned something. She said, guess who called me? She said, Kashama Miller. I didn't want to hear nothing about the city. But then she stepped in, she said, she called me to tell me she saw my son walking the street. We all can have some good in us if we put away the personal vendettas. You never know who you might need. I was that person over 35 years ago, walking the street, directing traffic. You know where you've been, but you don't know where you're going. And we sit up here and we play games with these taxpayers' money and take their property, do what we want to do. And we don't have to put emotion on the flow. But the reason why we have to put emotion on the flow, you all got uncertified people up here. They're not only the city manager, they the CRA director, they this, they that, they part of the HR. You can't do that with taxpayers' money. And I be blaming the big developers, but we allow these big developers to come in here. It starts in the in-house before you can blame the outhouse. We allow these people to do what they want to do. And just like Amazon, what happened to that? I'm passing by, I see a big old sign by reconstruction. I thought it was supposed to bring on a whole lot of jobs. Is that not going to be Amazon? You all need to let the taxpayers know what you're doing with their money. Enough is enough. And also, I would like to get an update on the water plant that so many of you all ran on about clean water. What is the update? What is going to cost us? Because even though you're not speaking about the $35 million you want to give the new police department to rebuild, we can't keep going through the same thing over and over because it costs us money. So I want you all to reconsider. We can move this city forward with all of you all being here, but you got to be up on the one accord. You got to be honest with yourself. And Tragic, I thank you, and I can't thank you enough. If you was to run again, I'll vote for you.
Thank you for your comments, Ms. March.
Mr. Chair, we have Commissioner Doss and then Quintel Smith.
Welcome to the podium, Ms. Doss.
Thank you so much, Chairman. My name is Commissioner Varissa Laldas. I'm the Port Commissioner for District 2. I wanted to give some quick updates. As we're implementing the master plan, we're definitely making sure that we keep a close eye on the wall that's bordering Riviera to make sure it's as aesthetically pleasing as possible. And as we build new warehouses, close to that area, we are also paying very, very close attention. We will be reviewing those renderings personally to make sure that they are as attractive as possible for our Riviera community, whether that be a mural or the architecture itself, we're paying close attention to that. Also, as far as the tourism packages, I believe that's been handed over to Margaritaville and a tourism agency. If there's anything that you would like me to do to facilitate that process or further explore what's going on with that process, please let me know. I'll also check in with our cruise entity just to see if there's anything that I can do as well. And I spoke to our executive director, and we do think that we will be able to help with some of the improvements that we had discussed about between MLK and Barack Obama Highway, that area. We are going to be able to help with some of that. I can't say how much yet, but those are things that we are willing to do. And if you guys have any ideas for any projects or any further collaborations, please contact me. I'm going to be meeting with Randy, and I look forward to hearing from every one of you. So thank you.
Thank you for coming, Ms. Doss.
Next, Mr. Chair, is Mr. Quintel Smith.
That's right. Thank you.
Welcome to the podium, Mr. Smith.
How y'all doing? Good afternoon. Good evening. My name is Quintel Smith. They call me Coach Q. I coach the basketball team out of Monroe Heights, Riviera Beach in that neighborhood. I've been doing this for two and a half years. I've reached out to a few of our representatives and for help, and I've gotten some help in the past, but I've gotten a lot of interest, a lot more kids, and it's kind of hard coming out of my own pocket. So I don't have anything other than I'm asking for help from the city, some interest from the city. I know Riviera Beach Pal gets a lot of help, but there are about 6 or 7 other travel teams in the area, and I'm one of them. And I would hate to have to tell the kids that we can no longer do what we're doing or try to chase what they want to do because we don't have any funding or support. So I'm not going to take too much more of your time. This is my first time here, but that is the reason why I'm here, to just make it known to the public, make it known and on record that I'm asking for help. My name is Quintel Smith. I'm Coach Q. My phone number is 561-294-9773. Anytime anyone wants to contact me, please do. I need all the help that I can get. We need all the help that we can get. Since I got another minute,
Could
we
you say your
started.
number one more time, Coach Q? Your number one more time.
My number is 561-294-9773. We started just as one team. My son, his son, they just wanted to play basketball. We gathered about 6 other kids in the neighborhood around our street that wanted to play. We got some uniforms. We signed up for a league, got some birth certificates, report cards, proper, documentation, and we started running. Now we are about 30 strong. So I'm asking for help. And whatever the city can do, teach me how to fish, and I can do it myself. But I'm just asking for any kind of support from the city and anybody who can hear my voice. That's gonna be it.
Thank you for your comments, Coach Q.
Mr. Chair, there were 3 public comment cards that were turned in after public comment closed, so we'll make them a part of the record.
Thank you, Madam Clerk.
You're welcome. Mr. Chair,
Go ahead, Councilwoman.
if you don't mind, I'd like to say something.
Please. Go ahead. Go ahead, Councilwoman.
I'm not sure. I know Miss Cindy March came up and spoke about me giving a call to Miss March Goldwire. I'm not really sure if it was in a positive light or in a negative light, but I did. Yeah, right. I just wanted to be clear that I did recognize you did appreciate it. I called her because I know over the years she's had some issues with her son and she's been very public about that. I saw him on my way home. And I said, if that was my son, I would want someone to know where he is or to call me. And so that's what I did. I gave her a call and she did appreciate it.
And I think her message, and I'm not going to speak on her behalf, was in a positive light of appreciation, is what she was commenting towards. But I'll let you guys talk about that. Mr. Evans, if you want to respond to any of the comments, please.
Mr. Chair, we had other members that submitted timely. Sorry. Mr. Chair.
Councilman McCoy. Councilman McCoy, go ahead.
So we did have staff in receipt of those comments before the statement was read.
Madam Clerk, the comments when they came in, were they brought in before I read the statement or after?
They were brought in after we closed public comment.
True.
No, hold on, Madam Clerk, hold on. After you said the public comment cards were closed, then I read the statement. Were they brought in while I was reading the statement, or was it after I read the statement? Because I do believe people were rushing up while I was still reading the comments or my statement.
It was, public comments were closed. You read the statement and they turned them in while you were reading the statement.
Okay, so as a point, hold on, Councilman. As a point of order, once I read the statement, then we'll close public comments. So we'll allow for those 3 comments to be read into the record. Thank you. Go ahead with the 3 that came in, please.
Miss J.B. Dixon,
Ms. Dixon, is she not here? Oh, there she is. And then the other 2, if
Mr.
you guys,
Chair.
Councilman.
First of all, the clerk can attest to whether the comments were received if she's face down reading something. The other staff are accepting the document. So to ask her the question, she wouldn't know in the first place because I'm literally watching these folks deliver the comments right when you started reading your statement. The notion that the comments were closed did not even occur yet. So certainly she shouldn't be the one that's being asked if she was reading the item. And there has to be a better process. It really does, because this can't continue to happen all the time.
Agreed. And to that point, what we will do is moving forward, Once the statement is read, we will close the comments at the end of the statement. So I can make sure that I've acknowledged what cards have been put in. Thank you. Go ahead, Ms. Dixon. You have 3 minutes. Thank you.
I'm JB Dixon from Singer Island in Riviera Beach. Excuse me. Lately, there's been a great controversy over on Singer Island, primarily caused by Mr. Lozman posting on Nextdoor social media that the results of the survey, which the city's law firm ordered, would cut everyone's property in two and cloud their titles, make them unable to sell their property, unable to get proper titles or insurance. I've been trying to get proper information out on that, and I was happy to see tonight that the city's attorney, who by the way is one of the most respected land use attorneys around, has made it clear that that is not true what you've been hearing, that all of the upland properties will have to have their boundaries redone in court. That is what the city's attorney said, and I might point out that Mr. Lozman did not graduate from law school or even attend that I know of. So I would try to tell everyone to hold tight. This situation is before the courts, and there will be a court decision in one of the cases with somebody who is suing Mr. Lozman. That decision will probably come down fairly quickly, and I want everyone not to panic based on the kinds of predictions that Mr. Lozman is known for, which do not come true. So consider the source. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments, Ms. Dixon. We had 2 other comments, Ms. Swan?
Yes,
Madam Clerk.
Ms. Doretta Polk and Mr. Fane Lozman.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Ms. Polk and Mr. Lozman.
Well, good evening. My name is Doretta Park, and thank you, Mr. Trodrick McCoy, because you saw and noticed what was going on with me passing out with the 3 people passing out their request to speak. I appreciate that. I want to send my condolences out for our attorney, Wynn. My deepest condolences and prayers to her. And I met Chief Coleman. I met him at his swearing-in ceremony, and I was my concern was with the climate of what's going on in the United States, that we still have the safety in coming into these meetings, that everybody goes through the metal detector, and he said that would be done. Because what's going on in our country is just terrible with children and elders, anyone losing their life like that. Another thing I want to talk about, the proclamations of emancipation concerning May 20th, which is, I think that's going to be an outstanding program, because I didn't even know that was originally the date in the history. I never was taught that. I didn't know that. And also your proclamation, Chair, concerning mental health. And I think you so far is doing a marvelous job. I sat into one of your mental health programs over the Heron Estate. It was absolutely phenomenal. And I think you're having another one too, maybe tomorrow, if you could collaborate on that when you speak. But I think you're doing a wonderful job. I think everybody in this board are doing their best in the interest of the citizens of Riviera Beach and the city of Riviera Beach. I really do. And I want to comment concerning Lindsay Davis. I hope that you all were able to see what's going on Lindsay Davis on Channel 5. We have a phenomenal director, Mrs. Gwen Oates, under the leadership of Mr. Blankenship. We're having a wonderful time. And these are the things that need to be highlighted about Riviera Beach, not just all the killings and the shooting. There's a lot of things. And this program that Coach Q is putting on, if you all could help him, because this is a way to keep our children off the street. If you all can do something for him, because I think that's going to be a lovely program also. And I just want to say, on coming on a Blue Heron going east by the water tower, there's a hole there, a big hole that needs to be sealed. And if you all can do that, and round the corner where the fire station,
Thank you
the
for your
fire
comments, Ms.
station,
Pope.
there's holes too. If you all can take care of that. And I
thank
thank
you
you
for
all
your
very
comments.
much.
Thank you, Ms. Pope.
Thane Lozman, Singer Island. Mr. Lawson, I think that was a good idea to let these three people speak tonight. The Florida Supreme Court said the Sunshine Law has to be liberally construed. You have an old lady who doesn't walk that fast. Maybe she was looking at her phone. If she's in the meeting and she's walking up, it shouldn't be to the minute. So you have to exercise your discretion per the liberal construction of that or whatever. I have in my copy a survey prepared by George Young, who was the city's expert surveyor. He was spent over $100,000 of your taxpayers' money to produce this. And the idea was to try to shrink my submerged lands property. Independently, ask your attorney, what is the city's boundary line in the city charter? And the boundary line in the city's charter is the TIF deed line that I also share on my property, TIF deed 17146. Then go to the Muni Code for North Palm Beach and ask what their boundary line is. It's also TIF deed 17146. So what Bauman wanted to do is he wanted to move 17146 with a new section corner. They weren't happy with this. It's kind of technical. They weren't happy with the corner put in 1915. They said it was put in the wrong place, so we have to move it. The point is, by doing that, if you move my property, you move the boundary lines for the city, and you do cloud everybody's title because they don't know what boundary line to use. It's clearly shown on the survey what the old corner is, which is right now, and the new corner they want to have. Now, there is a case regarding a guy who built the dock across our property. He was given the city's information regarding the corner marker, and he's coming to court and say, hey, let's move one of my properties I share with another guy, let's move it east, and then the dock won't go across it. But again, by moving it east, they're moving the actual boundary line for the city. I don't think they can do that. And not only that, the judge only has jurisdiction over Kant and myself. He doesn't have jurisdiction over the other 290 property owners who are affected. So the survey speaks for itself. Talk about lawyers. My land use lawyer has been to the U.S. Supreme Court 3 times and has won. Okay, I hired a surveyor who's one of the foremost surveyors in the state of Florida, the former surveyor for Brevard County. He said that this survey never should have been done, that the parties, including the governor in 1957, said the TIF deed was appropriate with the 1915 corner marker. They did this as just a way to just scam some money from the taxpayers and try to impact the size of my property, but it's just not going to work. And why? Why do you do a federal retracement survey? In the manual, you can only do a federal retracement survey if there's a federal property on Singer Island. So if there was a military base or a national park, which there isn't. So the bottom line is Kant's not going to win, but what it has done, it has clouded people's titles because this idiot surveyor filed the section corner with the state. So now there's 2 filed section corners, and it is a very big deal. I've talked to title guys, and it will cloud people's titles.
Thank you for your comments, Ms. Lozman. Madam Clerk, are those all the comments?
Yes.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Moving on to item 11A. Mr. Evans, if you would like to respond to some of the comments, you want to do that now or during your board comments?
I can do it at the end of my comments.
Thank you. Madam Clerk?
Item 11A, resolution number 64-23, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Riviera Beach, Palm Beach County, Florida, approving a site plan request from the Riviera Beach Community Redevelopment Agency, CRA, and the Riviera Beach Community Development Corporation, CDC, to construct 12 2- and 3-story affordable housing townhomes within 2 buildings with associated amenities on approximately 0.51 acres of land, 22,156 square feet, located at 130 West 11th Street, 120 West 11th Street, and 1101 Avenue E, providing for conditions of approval, providing for an effective date, and for other purposes. Mr. Chair, we do not have any public comment cards on this item. The acceptance of public comment cards are now closed.
Thank you. Can we have a motion?
Motion to approve resolution number 64-23.
Second.
Properly made, motion's been properly made and properly seconded.
Also, one other thing, Mr. Chair, if I may.
Madam Clerk, go ahead.
This resolution was advertised on May 9th in the Palm Beach Post.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Mr. Evans?
Mr. Chair, members of the board, if I can have the Director of Development Services to make this presentation.
Good evening, Board. For the record, again, my name is Deirdre Jacobs. I'm the Assistant City Manager here with the City of Riviera Beach. This item is associated with the ordinance that was read on second reading with regards to the abandonment, and it concerns the CRA project to develop the 12 townhomes. In particular, this item is the site plan application, and the conditions that were associated with this particular application were read as a part of the abandonment ordinance that was before you earlier.
Thank you. Board member, comments from the board? Madam Clerk?
Councilperson Julia Botel.
Yes.
Councilperson Kashamba Miller Anderson.
Yes.
Councilperson Troderick McCoy.
Yes.
Chair Pro Tem Lanier is absent for this vote. Chairperson Douglas Lawson.
Yes.
That vote passes, Mr. Chair, with Chair Pro Tem Lanier out.
Thank you. And Assistant City Manager, Ms. Jacobs, Mr. Sermons, we're excited for this project. So let's just try to push this as quickly and expedited as possible, but making sure it's done properly, because I know that we've been waiting on it. So thank you for bringing it to the table and getting it done for us. And Ms. Jenkins, you know we're ready for it. So thank you. Madam Clerk, item 11H.
Resolution number 7923, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Riviera Beach, Palm Beach County, Florida, approving site plan application SP-20-23, a special exception application SE-20-02 from Point West Riviera Beach Incorporated to amend the Triangle Commerce Center master plan in order to construct a gas station consisting of a 5,411 square feet parcel of land located on the northwest corner of the intersection of Beeline Highway and North Military Trail, identified by parcel control number 56-42-42-25-41-000-06 0060, and 5642-4225-41-000-0050, having a commercial COM future land use designation and a general commercial GC zoning designation, providing for conditions of approval and providing for an effective date. Mr. Chair, we do have public comment cards on this item. The acceptance of public comment cards are now closed.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. May I have a motion, please?
Motion to approve resolution 79-23.
Second.
Motion's been made and properly second. Mr. Evans?
Mr. Chair, if I can have the Director of Development Services, Mr. Clarence Sermons, to make this presentation.
Thank you. Mr. Sermons, you may go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Manager. Thank you again, Mr. Chair. This item before you is a repeat of a resolution that was done previously. The purpose of it is to make a correction to the header and associated advertisement to this item. So if council desires it, I can give a presentation on it, or if not, we can entertain any questions that there may be for the item.
Any questions from the board, colleagues? None? Madam Clerk?
Councilperson Julia Botel.
Yes.
Councilperson Kashamba Miller Anderson.
Yes.
Councilperson Troderick McCoy is absent. Chair Pro Tem Shirley Lanier is absent. Chairperson Lawson.
Yes.
That vote passes with Councilperson Charlotte McCoy and Chair Pro Tem Lanier absent.
Excellent. Thank you, Madam Clerk. Thank you, Mr. Sermons. We're going to go ahead and go forward with discussion, deliberation, discussion by the city manager.
Yes, Mr. Chair. With regards to the Amazon facilities, they anticipate opening before the first of the year, a little before the holidays. They have put an additional $10 million of capital investment into that facility. That facility is anticipated to be a same day. So in essence, if you were to order something on Amazon, you would probably get it within 5 hours of placing that order. They are going to be having roughly about 200 full-time positions and 100 part-time positions. They're going to be contracting out with persons to provide the delivery services. Originally, it was anticipated that they would have a fleet of vehicles, but they are going to be contracting out with persons to assist in the delivery of their goods. And so once we get closer through that process, they have agreed to work with us to do some recruitment for their particular facility. The water plant, there is going to be copious discussions that will occur with this board as well as the public in the next couple of months. Primarily during the heart of the summer, we'll have some public charrettes and discussions as we move through the water treatment plant process. We will address some of the infrastructure concerns brought up as it relates to potholes. I'll get with the Public Works team and we'll do that. And then we are having conversations with the Port of Palm Beach about opportunities to work with them with the Marina Village. And I will see if there's an opportunity for us to have a friendly scrimmage match with Coach Q's team and our PAL team, maybe as a fundraiser. He's got a team, we got a team, so let's lace it up. So that concludes my comments, Mr. Chair.
Thank you for your comments, Mr. Evans. Madam Clerk, you said you have 2 public comment cards?
Yes, I apologize. We had 2 public comment cards. It's Mr. Fane Lozman and Ms. Doretta Polk.
Ms. Polk said no.
Ms. Polk said no. Mr. Lozman? Welcome to the podium, Mr. Lozman.
Yeah, I mean, this is an interesting development because my public comment card was on a question that the clerk accidentally forgot to bring to your attention. That was on the resolution 11H. So 11H, you voted the way I wanted you to vote. So that's a good thing that happened. But I think it's in your new capacity as chairperson, I think that the way public comments are being done, I would suggest that you close public comments, not exactly when the thing is over, but basically if you see people getting up to hand a card, you say, you give a couple extra minutes. If people come here to make a public comment, they've driven here, they spent fuel money to come here, they've taken time away. It shouldn't be a race to put a card in. So I think that, a lot of places, you just raise your hand. Okay, and you're called. Raise your hand if you want to make a public comment. Why do you need to actually have a card? It's not like we're going to have 50 people come running, and if they don't have their card, it's usually the same 5, 7, 8 people who want to do it. But here's an example where a public comment card was missed for 2 people, and the clerk made an error. And there'll be other errors. But the point is, the Sunshine Law. I've been a member of the Sunshine Brigade since 2005. Those are people around the state that try to uphold the Sunshine Law. In 2018, I was the First Amendment Foundation Man of the Year for the efforts I've taken to uphold the Sunshine Law and the First Amendment. I'm telling you, Mr. Lawson, I've had the chance to lecture in different communities about the Sunshine Law. I think the public comment, the way it's done with this draconian, as soon as the question's called or as soon as whatever, if your card's not in, they close public comment. I think you have to have the flexibility to say, hey, when Ms. Williams wanted to make a public comment, this older woman came all the way here and she couldn't because she was 5 seconds too late. There needs to be something that do what the Florida Supreme Court said. Liberally construe it. If somebody says, hey, I forgot to turn my card in, I'm raising my hand, say, excuse me, Ms. Williams, sure, come up and make a public comment. But I think you need to be a little bit looser to accommodate what the Florida Supreme Court says. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments, Mr. Lozman.
You're on
We are on discussion. I'm sorry?
14.
Yeah, discussion and deliberations, City Attorney.
No comments.
Thank you. City Council Committee reports.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair.
Councilwoman Botel, go ahead.
Thank you. On April 26th, I represented the city at the Palm Beach County League of Cities Directors Meeting and the general membership meeting. I think there were at least one of my colleagues was there. I was elected president at that meeting, and I'm happy to say I'll be sworn in as president of the Palm Beach County League of Cities next Wednesday at the Kravis Center at noon. I hope I'll see many of you there. I attended the Palm Beach North Chamber Sustainability Committee meeting on April 27th, and also the Hunger Relief Advisory Committee meeting on May 17th.
Thank you for your comments. Thank you for your committee reports. Mr. Evans, did you have any comments to city manager report? I know that you're responding to the public, but did you have any comments for your report?
No, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Statements by the mayor, city council. Councilman McCoy?
Nothing.
Thank you. Councilwoman Miller-Anderson? Councilwoman Lanier?
Just to the Elderly Housing Committee loan office offers up to $750,000 in loans to make substantial improvements to existing housing for the elderly. You can apply through floridahousing.org. Also on May the 20th, we will have our May 10th Emancipation Day in Florida collaboration with the Palm Beach County African Diaspora Historical and Cultural Society. The event will commemorate the emancipation of enslaved African Americans in Florida, and this factual and fascinating history will be shared along with the diversified program. And that will be this Saturday, May the 20th, at the Riviera Beach Library, which is at 2129 North Congress Avenue.
Thank you, Councilwoman Lanier. Councilwoman Botel?
Thank you, Chair. I want to let people know I was honored recently, yesterday actually, to be named a Home Rule Hero by the Florida League of Cities. The league recognized almost 150 Florida city leaders statewide with a 2023 Home Rule Hero Award for advocacy efforts during the 2023 legislative session. I had a very interesting meeting with Megan Houston, the Palm Beach County Office of Resilience, about actions we could take as a municipality to enhance our resiliency. Also had a meeting today, phone meeting today with Mary Blakeney from the Office of Emergency Preparedness on the same topic, resiliency. Wanted to let you know that we're moving forward with the Palm Beach State College courses. We'll be starting those in the fall semester, which starts in August, I believe. So look forward to more information about that. Had a meeting today with 1,000 Mermaids Artificial Reef Project, which started in Riviera Beach. I didn't realize this, but they have many, more than 25 mermaids sunken near our marina, where they implant coral so that they can regenerate coral reefs. And I haven't been over there. I'm someplace I really want to go, and I'm encouraging people to take a dive over there and see what they look like. They're concrete mermaids, and then they're covered with coral now, or becoming covered with coral. A reminder that Jazz on the Beach will be happening this coming Thursday, May 25th at 7 o'clock. It's a fabulous event. Please bring your beach chairs and come and enjoy the music. It's wonderful. World Oceans Day will be celebrated here on June 9th with a concert. If you remember last year's concert, it was really outstanding. And we have an art exhibition, ocean-centric art exhibition that will be hung June 1st and will stay here through the summer months. So if you don't make it to the concert, please come and enjoy the art exhibition that's here for the rest of the summer. And I wanted to add my condolences to our city attorney, who, as you have heard, lost her son. I won't be here this weekend. I have a family commitment up north, but I know many of you will be attending the services, and I hope that you give her my regards. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Just have a few brief comments. This week, we're going to be hosting a mental health forum for all of our staff, our employees. It's going to be a lunch and learn. So colleagues, if you're able to sneak in, just to talk with the staff and the therapists and the counselors for Mental Health Month. It'll be at 11:30. Mr. Heaven's office and our HR director will be hosting this event with some organizations from the community. So it's going to be for staff. Of course, it's always open to the public, but this is going to be specifically for our staff tomorrow at 11:30 to 1:30 at the Wells Gym. Saturday, we're having a Guns Down, Gloves Up event, boxing event at Tate's Gym, starting at 5 p.m. Doors open at 4 p.m. That's hosted by Sincere 2000, and it's going to be hosted with the City of Riviera Beach, local organization, Palm Beach Boxing. So that'll be a great event. There's going to be 20 amateur boxing events this Saturday, so you guys are more than welcome. It's part of Mental Health Awareness Month. And last but not least, we're having a forum, 6 p.m. right here in this marina. It's going to be focused on mothers. So it's going to be a Mother's Day forum that we're going to be talking about mental health and mental health awareness. And we've partnered for the last 4 years with officially ESA and Mind Over You, who's provided these services free of charge to this community just to support the community to talk about mental health. Wanted to address 2 comments. One of the speakers that came up talked about the public comment process. We will make sure that we're working on that. It's going to be a priority to make sure all of our residents' voices are heard, and we're going to advocate and do a process that's in place that's in line with what we've consistently done, and also make sure it's improved a little bit better. So we'll make sure that we get the cards in and we're reading it at a timely fashion. Condolences are given to Dawn Wynn, our city attorney, my good friend Richard Riles, who lost their son, and they will be having their services this weekend. So prayers go out to them on behalf of the city and colleagues, staff, and all members here. If you guys are willing to stay for a few moments after, I just wanted to take a picture with the young man that came, one of our honor roll students. He waited all afternoon. So if we can take a picture with him before we shut down, if you guys head home, I'd love to just honor him as being an amazing leader of our community. Thank you. Motion to adjourn.
So moved.